Hello, this is 3 Cs of SEL, the quarantine series. Shor Denny of Community Now is here to lead us in our path. She's a leading advocate and instructor for social emotional learning in California's Inland Empire and beyond. I am Glenn W. Hunter of Hunter and Beyond LLC, and what we're going to be doing today is talking about our youth. We're going to be talking about social emotional learning. We're going to be talking about adults as well. But more importantly, we're going to talk about why do we have to have rules?
Oh my gosh, rules, rules, rules.
Sure, as every teen in history is asked, why do we have rules?
Rules, I don't know. There are some that say rules are made to be broken. So I don't know why we have rules. Some rules are good rules, some rules are stupid rules, some rules only benefit others, and some rules benefit us all. So that's a big general conversation. But why do we follow rules during this quarantine? That's like a whole nother subject, and something that I think that we should get into. Uh, a lot of the rules that we're hearing don't make sense. It's just not computing. I mean, everybody is sitting at home. We're off work. So, and when it comes to why do we follow rules, I guess one would be it's a way to cope. In a time like this, during this quarantine, it's a way for us to just, deal with it. Just deal with it. It's a way for us to bite the bullet and get through it. It's a way to cope. So right now, I would say during our quarantine, the reason that you're going to follow these rules is to cope and to get past this quarantine and through this pandemic.
You know, there's a lot of experts out there. When you start talking about rules, boundaries, they say that, it gives you a way to cope, but it also gives logic to the situation. We're in uncharted territory as a society. How do these rules we have in place from a quarantine perspective give logic to this insane situation?
That's the whole point, right? Because it's so insane and because we're in uncharted territory, rules are needed so that, in essence, we don't fall into chaos, that we are not all playing to our own fiddle. We're all making our own decisions individually. Right now, we have an issue that our states are making independent decisions, and we're going to see how that turns out. But for us as individuals within our communities, we need to stick together. We need to come up with a plan that's going to be better for us all. And that is the logic of following the rule of quarantine, is because it's overall going to be better for us all. And it has our self-interest at heart. We're going to follow this rule so that we do not get sick and so that we protect our families. And that's logical.
You know, in that logic, I think there's a couple of things that are being, are finding a contrast. They're kind of fighting each other. And it's that logic of the individual versus the logic of the society at large. Have you had a chance with the folks that you talked to on this matter? Have you had a chance to get some insight on how that logic gets communicated so that the individual can actually see what is best for society at large?
Today, there's a lot of misinformation. All kinds of people are getting different information. So I think that what we need to do is focus on the rules and on making those who make these rules accountable for the rule. So I'm stuck here at home. There are millions of people who are now out of work that are at home. And the logic and the accountability that it's the government that made these rules, and I'm going to hold my government accountable for the fallout for the rules. But in order to make them accountable, I have to follow the rule.
So we're making the rule maker accountable, which I think is, I have to agree with you, it's important so that we do have some structure. But what are the consequences when the rule maker is not accountable?
Oh, in our society, we're kind of seeing that right now. Um, and what we end up falling into is chaos, right? So again, if there are no rules, and if the rules are not good, let's say the quarantine, everybody's on shutdown, or most states are on shutdown. We're in California and we are on shutdown. Our president has stated that it's up to the states to decide if they're going to stay on shutdown or not. And I believe California's governor has stated that we will. There are certain criteria that we have to um, accomplish or achieve before we will come out of our quarantine. So those rules that he made and the logic that he has behind them, we can go to the website, we can follow, and we can see how that's going to work. Now, if Newsom's plan fails, we're screwed, right? I mean, the alternative of that, or the other side of that, is that we go into this veil that we're talking about, that it's going to spike, and that we're not going to have resources at the hospitals, and that there are going to be people dying from things that are not just corona related, because there are not going to be any beds in the hospitals. So it goes into anarchy, it goes into chaos, it goes into death, it goes into an untamed pandemic, an untamed illness just running rampant through our communities and our families. That's the alternative of not following the rules, and that could be the consequence of if the rules are not stringent enough or are not the right rules.
I think you bring up a very good point, in the sense that we now, as you've clearly articulated, have a very strong incentive to follow the rules, to make sure we're in alignment so that we all move forward together and come out of the backside of this pandemic. You know, to bring it even closer to home with the community that you serve so ably, is the fact that with that accountability, with these rules, we have the opportunity to create a safer environment for our children. Our kids stay safe. So how do we make sure we communicate that to them, that this is being done with their best interest at heart?
Well, we all have, we're all listening to the news. All of us are actually hearing different news. In our households, we have, different generations listening to different, flows of information through different media channels. So trying to bring everyone in to one kind of a general understanding keeps us safe. And following those rules of going out with a mask on keep you safe, right? If we want to talk about it from a trauma-informed approach, and trauma, we're looking at how this benefits the person that is traumatized. And we're all traumatized. We're in community trauma right now and individual trauma. And in our homes, we are dealing with a lot of trauma. So if we're going to talk about how to be safe and how to deal with this trauma that we are all going through, then we just have to make sure that we are, bringing our families together. We are trying to communicate, and that we are trying to continue to keep our children safe. We have to wear the mask, some type of protection. In trauma, it's for me, right? We're not making a rule, put on that mask so that so-and-so doesn't get sick. No, what we're saying is, please wear your mask so that you do not become sick, and that you do not contaminate your family members, and that you do not bring something into those that you love. So in a trauma-informed approach, we are saying, this is for your wellness, this is for you. And that's a reason to follow the rule. And it's because that rule will keep us safe.
Wow. In a world where we're exposed to so many sound bites, I think your understanding of educating and articulating to our youth the totality of this problem and their specific role, I think carries a lot of weight. I think that carries a lot of weight. We do need to speak to them with a sense that they understand not only do they have responsibility, but their actions does impact our society. Not just the next person, but our society at whole. So hopefully that practice that you just demonstrated will continue to be demonstrated. In the sense where kids continue to push back, our youth continue to push back on these rules that seem to be coming from on high? What's the alternative for them?
Death, anarchy, getting sick, getting the family sick. What are our alternatives to not following these rules that they have put in place? Being arrested, getting fined. Right now, I believe in California, you're not allowed to walk outside without a mask, and you can be fined for doing that. So the alternative or the consequences that come from not following the rules can be pretty steep. And it depends on the state. It can be considered almost, what is that? Attempted manslaughter, right? That people are attempting to infect others, and which, since this can be a deadly disease, there are all kinds of consequences that come from not being, not following the rules and not being safe and not, you know, keeping the 6 feet distance, and, you know, all of the things that they've put in place. In our society is going to completely change, because once we do come out of this, who's going to trust who, and um, how are we going to deal with coming back out into society?
Wow. I mean, when you put it like that, we're truly at a pivotal point in our society, how we're going to move forward, not just as a community, but as a state, as a country. There's a lot riding on all of us getting on board with how to manage through this quarantine.
Yes.
And so, with all the facts that you've just provided us, and particularly taking that youth perspective of dealing with rules, which again, time immemorial, that's been a challenge. What are the key takeaways that you want our young people, and as well as the people who are speaking into their lives, to have from our discussion regarding the quarantine that we're enduring?
Well, first off, we need to stay informed. We need to stay up to date of what's going on. It can be depressing. Find a way to stay current on COVID-19 without getting depressed, is what I would say, which can be hard. Don't listen to the news every day. Don't, you know, watch TV 24 hours and get it all into every molecule of your body. Just stay informed. Keep like a news break things where something, you know, oh, the president said this, or, you know, Fossey said this, or, you know, whoever the person is that's bringing this needed information, your local mayor, your local governor. Make sure that you listen to those and you understand the rules as they are changing. Make sure that you're looking at the information on how to get unemployment, how the stimulus check, because that's stressful, right? Not having funding or not understanding where your money is going to come from, that how you're going to eat. Making sure that, you know, you're staying informed on that is really, really important at this time. So the first step would be staying informed.
Okay. As you're looking at that information that's going out, obviously we want to communicate. That's an important part of staying informed. Is there a parting piece of advice that you'd like to extend to not just the youth in this case, but really society at large, with the expectation it'll trickle down to the youth? But what piece of advice would you give them?
I'm not even going to entertain what you just stated about trickle down to the youth. I think that trickle down, those words should never go together. I don't think that trickle down is effective in any environment, in any atmosphere. So I'm not gonna say that. What we're gonna do is we're gonna include our youth, right? Because they are getting information too. So what we want to do is group around and find out, what did you hear? What did you hear? Hey, I'm finding out this, and bring all of that information together that your family is accumulating, and breaking it down. What does it mean? What is the elementary kid hearing at school, right? Because they're still online school. What is the high schooler talking about? What is that college student finding out? And again, what are you listening to? And bring that together, communicate, understand that everyone's getting a piece of the puzzle. No one has all the answers, and no one has the answer. So it's going to be, how does your family deal with all of that information together? And how are you going to move forward in your understanding of following the rules and staying safe together? And that communication is very helpful, and it helps you cope. A third thing that I would actually do would be breathe, breathe, and breathe some more. When you get that moment, I get them multiple times through the day where I'm like, oh, if I have to be, if I'm in this house where, I'm lucky I have a yard I can go into. So I can go into my yard and look at nature, and kind of like bring myself down. You can drink some teas, some soothing teas. There are different things you can do. Exercise, take a walk, put on your mask, stay with your family and take a walk, remember, safe distancing, and get out into the air. Let the vitamin D from the sun hit your body if you're somewhere where it's sunny, because the vitamin D helps you with your mental clarity, and it helps you feel better, and it brings that vitamin into your body and just makes you have a general feeling of well-being. So, there are some things that we can do: read, take baths, do yoga, exercise, take this time to do some serious self-care. Um, do it with each other, massage each other's backs, do some different family things that are bringing self-care, that you can do together, and meld as a family, become stronger. Don't let this time of quarantine break your family unit down. It's literally a time where you can build and become stronger. And those would be my words, and my ways of coping during quarantine would be to build your family relations, build more communication, deep in empathy and understanding each other, breathe a lot, and we will make it through.
Incredibly encouraging words, Shor. And I do thank you for that. Nothing more to add to that as we really start to launch the quarantine series of the 3 Cs of SEL. Again, that is Shor Denny, our subject matter expert for social emotional learning. I'm Glenn W. Hunter, and we want to remind you, be safe.
Be safe and be well.